Hey, Tim, I think the weeks are going by faster in COVID
Oh,
world
yeah.
than before. What do you reckon?
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're
There's,
action-packed, aren't they?
there's no doubt about that.
What are you
So,
going to do? What are you going to do now that the shackles have been taken off and we can go and do all kinds of things? What's your plans for the weekend?
I'm going to stay home.
It was on the news a couple of nights ago, and one of the guys being interviewed said, "I miss all the things I didn't even do," and
Yeah, exactly.
the point that he was making is that he was in England, and he said that between certain hours you can go outside and you're allowed to go exercising. He said all those people who don't exercise took their right to go out and exercise at that hour, you know.
Yeah.
So it's hilarious. It'll be funny to see, or entertaining to see, how we all readjust once everything opens up again.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Particularly the pub. It'll be
Yeah. My husband will be at the pub as soon as it opens. In fact, I'm surprised he's not queuing up now in anticipation of it in, next month.
Well, it's his civic duty to do it, because that way the economy starts to kick in and the money flows.
Oh, he'll do his part. I promise you. Now, the Labor Party were coming out, sort of claiming some victories in these recent amendments to the Act, saying that there's $2,500 available for tenants that qualify. But it's not quite so simple, is it?
No, good observation.
Mm-hmm.
So what's happened is that in the legislation, it empowers the minister to be able to go and, by way of regulation or some other subordinate document, build a fund out of the statutory fund. So this is the money, the interest that's earned on all the bonds and this sort of stuff. So there's a great chunk of money there.
Yep.
And what the minister will be able to do is to go in there, now having the power to do it within the legislation,
right,
to take that $2,500 if you satisfy the criteria, et cetera, on the assumption that you do. He can then give $2,500 to each of the landlords who are giving some concessions to their tenants.
Okay.
Interestingly, that sum of money is replicated in the other states. So in Tasmania, and in Queensland, and in Western Australia, it's all around about the same sum of money. So even though we haven't got it yet, they're not going to be out there on their own if they give it to us.
But so let's just, if they give it to us, so the minister has the ability to give that money, but he doesn't have the obligation to give it. Is that what I understand?
Correct. He has the power to do it now.
Right.
So it's in the legislation. He is vested with the power to go and do it. So the question is now, will he do it?
Will he do it? Okay, and we don't know. Don't know if he will do that or not. Okay.
No, but I suppose in fairness to the minister,
it's only just happened.
In fairness to the minister, this all happened on Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday. Yeah. They were sitting Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I was wrong, and I heard this morning that it only received royal assent yesterday.
Right.
So it's all kind of like, so it's pretty new.
Okay.
Whether or not the minister will do it, I don't know. We'll know more this time next week.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll certainly be following that up for everybody next week. We did have some questions about that, as in the threshold. So it's quite onerous to meet the conditions. The tenant can only have $5,000 in the bank. And the question has come to us saying, is that threshold per person or per household?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's probably fair to assume.
What an excellent question, because when you looked at the criteria to become an impacted tenant, it was the household income had to drop by 25%. So are we applying the same principle? So you've got $4,999 in the bank and I've got one, and we're in the same place, so then we would get it. So
we will seek to clarify that answer once we know if the money is actually going to become a reality for people, because at this stage we're
but
just
whoever asked that question, that's a real good one.
Yeah, good one. Okay, I had a funny situation this week. We had a residential tenant who was claiming that they were impacted by COVID, lost their job, and therefore needed to negotiate their rent. And the property manager went back and said, "What about that $3.5 million you had in the bank when you first put in your application to become
Sorry,
a
how
tenant?"
much?
I know, $3.5 million. I
I thought you said.
I can't even imagine why anybody would have that amount of money in the bank, but that was the situation, and they still felt that they should be able to negotiate their rent. Which brings me to the commercial side of things. I know there's been a lot of opportunistic people in the commercial space, but the REI team has put together a letter to support those opportunistic claims, I guess, on behalf of the property manager. And we had a good result this week with one of them.
Yeah, so the team, to their everlasting credit, have developed an enormous amount of documents now to bring process to the system, so that you can, I guess, go to your tenant and gather the necessary information, be able to compile it, go to the landlord. So there is now a process which has been developed. Now, I think what happened in these circumstances, in the one you're referring to, the tenant said, "I just don't think I'll pay any rent.
Yeah.
My work here is done." And the property manager said, "Well, that's fine, but here is some documents you will need to complete, and then I can make an assessment of your ability not to pay or to pay." And then when they saw the information they needed to gather, etc., they then decided they wouldn't do that. So it was it was great.
And they backpaid their rent. They backpaid their rent.
Yeah. So the team's done a great job with developing all these documents for those people who aren't using them. And have a look; it'll make your life a lot easier, and they'll bring a process to it.
Yeah, and all of that stuff is available on the REI website, obviously. So check it out. Anything else to cover before we head off today, Tim?
Yeah, just one other thing I would like to mention. If anyone's looking for training, we have a brand new training website, which in the midst of people have all my team, I don't know how they're doing it, I don't want to ask, but in the midst of all of this trouble that's been going on with our present friend COVID, that the team has been able to develop a new website for training. Now, the reason I'm talking about that, if you go down through the various training things there, you'll start to see some of the stuff that is really relevant to today, those difficult conversation training and all that stuff I've been talking about. So please go and have a look. It's well worth an investment of your time.
Awesome. Well, I will go and check that out right now. You have a wonderful weekend.
And I will.
I'm sure you will. And I will look forward to catching up with you on Monday.
Yep. Talk then.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.